Okay, welcome everyone to the part one of Committee and Infrastructure Service Committee for Monday, April 3rd, 2017. We'll be dealing with part one of this committee agenda, and we have consent items. We do have some delegations for a couple of the consent items, so I'm going to ask for a vote that we pull the consent items out. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, so we will start off with the delegations first, and that's going to be dealing with item number 2, Wilson Avenue bike lane implementation, and our first delegate up is Mr. Ray Hart. Just to remind our delegate that pursuant to Council's procedural bylaw, delegations are permitted to address committee for a maximum of 5 minutes.
Okay.
But I'll give you some leeway if it's...
Okay.
Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ray Hart. I'm a lifelong citizen of Kitchener, 40-year resident of Wilson Avenue. I'm here to speak against the proposed bike lane implementation on Wilson and Franklin at this time, and put forth the reasons for that. One of the main reasons at this time is the condition of the pavement itself on Wilson and Franklin. I submitted photos taken this past Friday by myself of Wilson Avenue on the north side of Wilson, where the bike lane will be against the curb. I believe everybody has them, or they can be viewed maybe up here. I don't believe it's safe to think that cyclists should be driving over these potholes and cracked and sunken conditions on the road. It's numerous, and I think some of it is not suitable for driving bicycles. The other thing is on Franklin Avenue, they're talking about lane markings or roadway markings on the side, not actual bicycle lanes. I don't know what the purpose of that would serve on Franklin. People can judge the edge of the road by the curbs. The cyclist safety on Wilson Avenue. Another condition on Wilson Avenue that's existed, I call annually to the police department, traffic department to enforce the speed limit and no heavy truck restriction. A lot of heavy trucks drive down that road. Some of our own City of Kitchener vehicles are guilty of this too. Although in the past little while it's improved, I think the word's getting out, try to stay off that when possible. This may contribute to the crumbling conditions of Wilson Avenue, along with it's a main bus line too. The report notes that reconstruction of Wilson Avenue is to take place in 2022. I don't believe personally that road will last in any usable condition until 2022, especially for cyclists. The report demonstrates clearly to me that the parking that will be removed on the north side of the road can be accommodated on the south side. So that argument is not really for consideration now. The argument in my mind is that at this time in 2017, do we as citizens of Kitchener want to spend $20,000 of our taxpayer money painting a crumbling road? Another point I want to make is on Greenfield Avenue, which is maybe 250 feet to the north of Wilson Avenue, we have signage for bikes saying this is a bike road for you can travel to downtown Kitchener or you can travel to Fairview Mall. It points arrows for people that don't know which way they're going. The condition of the asphalt on Greenfield Avenue is superior, far superior to Wilson Avenue, and I think this can accommodate any cycling traffic until 2022 when road construction takes place on Wilson Avenue. I can tell you anecdotally, since I live on Wilson Avenue, that there's far more cars parked on Wilson Avenue than there are cyclists using Wilson Avenue. So are we really thinking about spending this money at this time for cycling that doesn't exist or in any numbers? Another point I want to make is that it speaks to collisions that have been experienced on Wilson Avenue. There has not been one collision involving a bicycle at this time, so I think they're being accommodated as it is with parking on street. So I don't see the urgency of this project proceeding at this time. The report also speaks about further study of connecting the parks, Homer Watson Park and Wilson Avenue Park for cycling. However, there is a main concern of mine that's coming up, and that is the section between Kingsway and Fairway. We're going to implement the LRT terminal there. We're going to have 2 railway crossings there with many trains every day. It's a heavily congested area as it is. It's a traffic nightmare, in my opinion, as it is. I spend a good portion of my life stuck in traffic in that area every day. And we want to accommodate bicyclists in that area safely. I just don't believe that this can be done. So that may be another reason that we hold off on this, implementing this right now. Study that once the LRT is running, and then see if it's viable that we can connect Wilson Avenue to Homer Watson Park for cyclists. Whereas in the picture of, is it any better than what we've got on Greenfield Avenue at the moment? So what I would like to see is that this be considered, that at least maybe even the traffic department or the roads department examines the condition of Wilson Avenue. Maybe people aren't aware of it, how bad it is. Hopefully the pictures give a better idea of that. And if anything can be done to improve the reduction of heavy trucks on that road and enforcement of speed limit. Now in Ontario, they've reduced the speed limit in school zones to 40 kilometers an hour. So hopefully that will help on Wilson Avenue too, because we do have Wilson Avenue School there. But it is crazy the way some people speed down our residential streets. And hopefully the police can find some time to enforce that. Before I conclude, I'd like to thank Danny Pimentel for all his help answering all my questions patiently and professionally, and he's been a great resource, and he's a great asset to the city. Thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hart. We do have a couple of questions from committee members.
Okay.
Councillor Fernandez.
Thank you, Ray, for coming in and expressing your concern about where these painted lanes are going to go. You say that the condition. Sorry. The condition of Wilson Avenue, and it's a route that I'm generally traveling to go and visit my parents. Would you say that, have you checked with our transportation department to see if they will be fixing the potholes and the cracks before we implement the painting?
No, I haven't, but last fall I noted that they did do some repair on the south side, that they're patching. And there's been a lot of patching. If you drive the road, you know you've got that bump now on the road. Mm-hmm. But I've noted when I was taking the pictures on Friday that those cracks are opening up again already. So half a year later, they're cracking. So we've got a cracked road with more bumps now.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a tough winter when it comes to asphalt. When you say that you, are you concerned more with the reduction of the parking or with the safety of the cyclists along
Initially, I was more concerned with the reduction of the parking because I didn't feel that there's a need for it, or a demonstrated need at least. But I think the study shows that, yeah, there's enough parking on the south side for now. And I can live with that. So now my main concern is the safety of cyclists, and plus the lack of acknowledgement that we've got a perfectly good road 250 feet or 300 feet to the north that can accommodate these cyclists on Greenfield. Less traffic, less trucks, or no buses that I know of on Greenfield. So I think that hasn't been duly considered.
You make a good point, because Greenfield is is one of the routes that the Cycling Advisory Committee has taken to see how that flows to Fairview Park Mall. Yeah. But Wilson Avenue is certainly a corridor where people can go to the pool and to the park and travel along possibly to school and activities there, right?
Yeah, and that's correct. But what I've noted now is in my day, I'd ride my bicycle to school, but you just don't see kids doing that anymore, riding the bike down to the pool. There's a lot of chauffeurs around town for kids, it seems.
Well, maybe if we can get these cycling lanes in there, people will feel a little bit more comfortable.
Well, this is the thing, one thing I spoke with Danny about before is that if we build it, will they come, type of thing, you know? Okay. And maybe that's true.
Okay, but, well, thank you for your concerns. I really appreciate it. I do have some questions of staff.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor, no, we do have a few more, Mr. Hart.
Oh, okay.
Councillor Marsh.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in and presenting. I didn't get to be here while you were presenting, but I did look at your pictures that were sent to us ahead of time. So I want to ask you, are you yourself a cyclist?
Yes.
And so, and do you live on Wilson Avenue?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. And so are you, the photos that you sent and that you've presented today, are they representative of the entire route, in your opinion, or?
The photos show the area from Traynor to Franklin, only on the north side.
Okay.
And this is the one that the bike lane would be painted closest to the curb. On the south side, there'd be a parking lane.
That's right.
And then the bike's out. So if it's a bad condition along the curb where most of the damage is,
Yeah.
they're out more from the curb anyway. So the road won't be as bad on the south side.
Okay. What I'm wondering is, are you hoping to see a bike lane put in after the road is reconstructed?
I'd be fine with that. I'm opposed to it being put in now and the money and effort being spent putting this in on this crumbling road, because personally I don't believe, I'm not an expert in asphalt, but I can't believe that road will last till 2022. I've lived on Wilson Avenue for 40 years. This is by far the worst condition I've ever seen it in, along with many of our city streets.
Sadly, at this time of year, it is the worst, right? You know, as the snow has melted.
Regardless of the time of the year, this is not in good shape on Wilson Avenue.
Okay, I appreciate your answers. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. We do have one more questions for you. Councillor Yaneski.
Thank you for coming in and making a presentation. I did look at the photos that you sent last week on the emails, and those road conditions don't look in the best of shape, but they could be replaced. Those potholes could be filled in by the city as long as they're notified and they can follow through with that. May not be the best in terms of a smoothness, but at least you won't have a pothole. You sort of confused me in terms of your opening statement where you said you were against bike lanes, yet you said during your presentation that you're agreeable to having a study done or deferring it. So it's either one or the other. Which, as I would see it, what would you prefer?
Maybe I didn't say implementation of the bike lanes at this time, but as Wilson Avenue and Franklin Avenue stand now, I'm opposed to the implementation of bike lanes at this time. If we're reconstructing the roads in 2022 or whenever that may be, it makes sense to me that we're going to put the road markings on then. The reports demonstrated to me that parking needs will be met on the south side of the road. And as I said, I've talked with Danny a few times through this, and he's answered my questions.
Right.
Initially, that was the main concern of mine. Then I spent time thinking about this, and I think it's, cycling, maybe it's going to be a thing that we're going to have in the city, and maybe it's the right time to do it when the road's resurfaced. And then in the meantime, we'll save the $20,000 for future projects and use Greenfield, which is existing with signage already, and the asphalt already is in far superior condition than Wilson Avenue.
There is a school on Wilson Avenue, it's Wilson Public School.
Yes.
And there's a tendency with a lot of schools that people drop off their kids and pick them up before school and after school. Do you see that an issue if the bike lanes go through? Because people do generally tend to park when they're picking up their kids and they're waiting, and there's usually a whole swarm of kids. Is there an issue there that you see? Do you think there'll be a conflict with bike lanes or not?
I suppose it will be if there's not bylaw enforcement available. Because I live on the north side of Wilson Avenue, about a block and a half down from the school. And occasionally I have people that will just block the end of my driveway. You know, and when I'm home, I notice this. A couple times I went out and put a note on their windshield, please don't block my driveway. But there are people that disregard the parking rules that we all know, common sense rules.
You also said that you're a bicyclist in answering one of the questions, but you also stated that you see more cars parked on the street than you see bicyclists.
Yeah, that's true. You really don't see a lot of bicycles go down Wilson Avenue, at least I don't. And I don't know if we have any study that shows that there is a lot. Like I had mentioned, the kids used to ride bikes to school. Kids don't ride bikes to school anymore. And we mentioned Wilson Pool and Wilson Park. You do see some bicycles, but I'd say definitely there's more numerous cars parked even on the north side of Wilson Avenue than I do see bicycles going down the street. Say at 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 o'clock, you notice 6, 7 cars parked on north side of Wilson Avenue. You may see a couple bicycles, if that.
Okay, a final question. Did you talk to any of your neighbors or up and down the street as to what their thoughts are on this? You seem to be the only one here, as I would gather.
Only my in-laws that live on Franklin, and they don't really seem to have an opinion on it. Unfortunately, I missed the general information meeting. The one thing that happened with that is that there was a sign put up on short notice of the meeting, but there was also mail delivered to the house that I missed of the notice of the meeting, and I was out of town that day. So had I have been able to attend that, maybe I would have spoke with more of my neighbors about it, but it doesn't seem to be a burning issue to my neighbors. That's, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hart. That's all the questions we have for you.
Thank you.
Now we do have questions of staff if you want to queue in. Councillor Fernandez.
Yes, so Mr. Hart has made a couple of interesting points, and it's sort of similar to what I saw on Pioneer Drive, Mr. Carmichael, when we painted the lines, and there's some issues in terms of the quality of the asphalt. I know that we do get out and we do some repairs. Is that what is planned for this route before we paint the lines?
Thank you. Through the chair, in response, I'll refer you to East Avenue, the cycling plan we did 2 years ago, and we had a similar challenge where the roadway wasn't in very good shape, but we had a strong desire to proceed with cycling facilities. And in that, on that project, we did proactively deal with operations to have them go in and do repairs so that the quality of the pavement was a little more applicable for the cycling infrastructure that we put in.
Okay. And Mr. Hart makes a very good point in that Greenfield is right now the signed route for our cyclists to get to Fairview from downtown. I'm wondering if I mean, certainly when we talked about this at the Cycling Advisory Committee, there was a lot of enthusiasm for that connection on Wilson Avenue because it actually does make a better connection than Greenfield. It's a bit more direct. He's making a good point in the terms of spending the $20,000, but are we using this opportunity to start getting people to use this route by painting the lines, and how long will the paint last?
Thank you. Through the chair, excellent question. The paint would last, we typically repaint every year, all our pavement markings. So that's not a big impetus on us to maintain. Can you remind me your original question? Sorry.
Yeah, it was a bit convoluted. Sorry, Mr. Carmichael. What I was saying is that, and now I'm starting to forget my own question. Goodness sakes, it was related to the fact that Wilson is a preferred route. It is much more direct, right? But also the fact that, are we trying to get people to start using that route instead of Greenfield or as an alternative? And then following up with how long does the paint last on the road? Will we see ourselves painting over top of cracks and potholes and things, as Mr. Hart suggested?
My apologies for my mind slip
okay.
there. We are planning an environmental assessment to implement bike lanes or some form of cycling infrastructure, forgive me, on Wilson Ave from Traynor down right through to Wilson Park, as previously mentioned. Our plan for that is to execute that EA in the 2018-19 time period, I would suggest. So this formal recommendation that we're recommending today, we support it in that we feel this is going to be an extremely good cycling corridor through there, connecting the parks and providing a little more comfortable facility on road than just signs on the sides of the road. The comments made by the delegation are respected. I totally appreciate where he's coming from on this. But we have had previous examples putting cycling lanes in on not the best quality pavement, but they've been functional. And our thinking here is that would give us an opportunity to do some further monitoring studies to determine if we need to do anything different when the reconstruction comes into play as well.
Okay, so that's an interesting point. So we're going to be, if we put these painted lines in, what we're also going to be doing as a follow-up, and this may be helpful to Mr. Hart to understand, it is in a way an opportunity for us to see how this road gets used for cyclists. Are there changes that we need to make once we pave the entire stretch of the road, and how we're going to reconfigure those? So in a way, are we kind of guinea pigging Wilson Avenue? I mean, is that something that we could say we're doing in a way? Not to say that we're wasting $20,000, because the paint in itself is not a substantial cost.
That's a fair statement. Obviously, staff can make better decisions when we have better information, and having the facilities in for 3 or 4 years before we put the permanent ones here through the reconstruction would be a benefit. But to be full disclosure, part of our motivation for having the 3 to 4 year period to monitor was the delegation's original concern with on-street parking. He had identified that he felt that parking should be maintained on both sides of the roadway. Since we've done the studies, it sounds like Mr. Hart has appreciation for that maybe parking on both sides of the roadway isn't needed from a supply standpoint. So that was part of our thinking in the 3 to 4 years, that we could further study the parking needs and demands as well.
Okay, and one last question, because my time is almost up. Mr. Hart speaks about the truck use on Wilson Avenue, and I know that some of our own fleet may actually be using that route to get down to the park. Should we actually be redirecting some of that traffic down Franklin and then turning right onto Wilson to get down to the park to do any heavy work? Is that the preferred route? And as well, I know that it is consistently challenging for your department to keep heavy trucks off that route.
In response, any heavy vehicle has the ability to access the site they're going to, whether they're coming to or going to. And the wording in our bylaw, Cole's Notes version, is basically the nearest available truck route is what they're asked to take. So in this case, coming straight up from Fairway or coming down Franklin from Weber, I'm not sure the distance would be significantly different, and I doubt any police officer would issue a ticket based on one way or the other. So they have a right to go in there. Just to further add, though, we have received complaints about heavy trucks in the area in the past, specifically city vehicles, and I followed up with our operations group and reinforced that message, also with our fleet group, to not be using that area unless they have a specific destination they have to get to.
Okay, thank you. I may have comments.
Thank you. Most of my questions have been answered already, but I do have one. Will we be able to potentially still fit in a buffer, despite the fact that the design currently doesn't show one? I'm asking that because if the roadway is in poor condition, especially near the curb line, it would be important for cyclists to have a bit of wiggle room, literally, so.
In response, under the current design, we do not have the road width to mark the buffers. Were we to determine that to be a desire and need after the roadway is reconstructed, it's important to note that that would require the roadway to be widened, that 1 meter for the half meter either side. I guess actually half a meter, forgive me, because you'd only need the buffer on one side with the parking on one side. But there would be a cost associated with widening that, a significant cost to widen the road. But until we get to that design stage, I can't answer that question, whether it can be, whether the road can be widened without disrupting trees, so on and so forth. I don't have those answers.
Mr. Reedman?
Through the chair, I'd just like to add as well, there's fairly low parking usage along that side, so not having the buffer in the initial phase isn't as big of a deal as in some other locations where there's significant usage of parking along that roadway. So it still does allow cyclists to maneuver into the parking lane if there is a pothole or something there, avoiding the bike lane.
Okay. Well, I would just encourage staff that when you're looking one more time at the dimensions, if there is indeed space for even a smaller buffer than the norm, to add that, just because even a wider line or something. I'm talking not about the side where there is already going to have parking remain, but the side where the bike lane will be against the curb just putting that out there. You guys are the experts. You know how best to do that, but that's just an idea that I think would be worthy consideration.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have no further questions of staff. Do I have a mover on this item? Councillor Fernandez moves item number 2. Councillor Fernandez, you have comments? Click in, please.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
So just a brief comment. I think Mr. Hart has certainly provided us with some reasonable concerns related to safety of cyclists. As a cyclist, I constantly have to weave in and out around potholes, and we know that our operations staff tries valiantly to get out there as quickly as possible to get them done. It has been a very challenging year this year with our asphalt on our roads. I think it's important that he continue his dialogue with Danny Pimentel. I think it's really important that you are working together and you understand some of the rationale. And I hope the questions that I asked today helped you understand one of the reasons why we possibly will go ahead, if it passes today, with painting the lines on the road, and that we're going to be watching to see how that affects the cycling routes. And that once we do the reconstruction, we'll have some additional information to see how much we need to change, if there's anything we need to change, and that will impact the next phase when we reconstruct the road. So I'm hoping that this has been helpful for you. I certainly appreciate your concern about spending the $20,000 and your insight living on that street, knowing what happens on Wilson Avenue. So thank you. Thank you very much for coming in, and I hope this passes for now.
Okay, we have no further questions of staff. All those in favor? Opposed? Item is carried. Just a note to committee that item 7 for council, there's the zone change application. The map has been revised, and that's part of one of the packages that one of the sheets that you see in front of you. And then in addition to that is item number 8, dealing with noise exemptions. We have 3 other items that are added, and that is Wednesday, July 12th from 8 to 11, Apollo Cinema Under the Stars at Civic Center Park. And then Thursday, July 6th from 6 to 10 p.m., Gowdy's Lane Pop-Up Block Party number 2, and that's the Gowdy's Lane. And then on Wednesday, August 16th from 8 to 11 p.m., Apollo Cinema Under the Stars, again, Civic Center Park. We have some questions here. Councillor Singh?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, for item number 7, as from before, I've acknowledged this, that I have a conflict of interest for that item.
Item
as my
4
parents own, item 7 as my parents own property.
Just
in
item 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
Proximity.
Conflict noted. Councillor Etherington?
For you, Mr. Chair, it's in my ward. I would move number 7. I have a question on number 8.
You would move number 7?
Yes.
And what about a number 8, sorry?
Question I had, probably to Gloria. Does the noise exemption override if we have a bylaw in place? I'm thinking about Victoria Park Island, where I believe the bylaw says only acoustic music. I've noticed that there is amplified music on certain events on the island, including our own Christmas event, by the way.
Go ahead, Gloria.
Through the chair, the noise exemption would override that if council were to approve it for our events that are listed on Schedule 8 only. If there's private events taking place on the island, then those would not be captured, and those should be called into our staff and dealt with.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Yaneski?
Yeah, regarding item 7, we have a new map here. I need a clarification when I look at this versus the one in the report. I can't see what the difference is. If somebody can address that, please. I noticed that the date has changed from the...
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll have to look into that and get back to you. I'm not sure what the difference is.
Okay.
So would it be just a technical change?
Yeah.
I know it's a holding use provision withdrawal, but it's not a big issue, but still.
Mr. May?
Through you, Mr. Chair, if you look at the frontage on Victoria Street for Area 1, there's a difference between the two maps. Take a look on Victoria Street. Okay, in the Area 1 section, you'll see that there is a sliver along Victoria Street in the right-of-way, which is different between the first map and the second map.
You're good? Yep. Okay. So, Councillor Arden, are you going to move all the other items as well? Items number 1, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8? Okay. We're going to vote separately on item number 7. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. The rest of those items, all those in favor? That's carried. Item number 3, I'm going to hold off on making a decision because there was a delegation that had signed up, and we're going to give that individual time to make it here, considering that the next item that we're going to deal with is looking at being a deferral. You'll move the deferral of the fire master plan? Okay, Councillor Davey?
This is, sorry, question number 3. So there was a delegation signed up and they can't make it, so do we need to defer that officially then too, right? To when? Do we know when the delegation is going to come?
What I'm expecting is, because item number 9 of discussion item was scheduled to be 60 minutes, and my guess is maybe this delegation was figuring it was going to start at 11 o'clock and may show up at around 11 o'clock, so I'm going to give that some time. Okay. To see if this individual does show up.
Okay, so we're just going to, we'll deal with it again at 11 one way or another, or
yes,
defer to?
We'll deal it, and
sure.
If we finish all the items, I guess we'll be in recess until that individual does come.
Okay.
We'll wait till the scheduled time.
And on the fire master plan, were we deferring this to the 24th or the 1st?
We're our next committee meeting, so whatever
next
that is.
Next committee meeting is, I believe 21st? That's May 1st.
May 1st?
Is that okay. Yes? Okay. So I would defer till then.
So you move that?
Please.
Okay, so do you have questions?
Yeah, I had a question on number 5.
On number 5? Okay, Councillor Marsh?
Thank you. Just a question for Gloria about the noise exemption for the Victoria Street Bridge work. Is it a part of the just the way things are done that they will make sure that they do as much noisy work as possible during the day, or or are we giving them carte blanche to just work loudly at night, regardless of whether they could have done it during the day?
Through the chair, in response, technically the exemption provides them with an exemption from the noise bylaw, allowing them to work at all hours. But experience and practice with the MTO and their contractors in the past is they have been quite good at limiting the essential work to overnight, and if the noisier stuff is going on, they will make every effort to have that done during the day.
Okay.
But there's no assurance, right? It's difficult to tie them on an item-by-item basis for the construction when they can and can't do certain items of the project.
So on a regular basis, we're asked to provide noise exemptions that are for months and months at a time, or even a whole year at a time. And I'm just wondering if it's been done in the past, or if it's possible for us to look into doing it in the future, to just have a clause in our noise exemption that makes it crystal clear, and even within the exemption itself, that we expect that the common practice will be played out, so that we will expect that the noisy work will be very limited at night.
In response, I think Council has every right to throw that clause onto the approval of this, and I would understand your thinking behind that.
Yeah, so I would like to see if there's a way that we could vote on that, or maybe I need to bring forward a motion at a different time.
I would think you would have to bring a motion forward, because we already passed this item already.
Yeah, we did. No, I don't mean for this specific item. I mean in general, noise exemption.
I think you would bring one forward.
I will. Thank you.
Yes. Councillor Gazzola. You're clicked in? You're good? Okay, so let's go to the discussion item number 9. We'll move that deferral by Councillor Davey. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. I guess in the meantime, we'll be in recess. Councillor Galloway-Sealock, Kelly Galloway-Sealock.
I just wanted to see if there were any items that we could move up into this section. I know I had spoken with the chair earlier that maybe number 15, it's not likely we'll get a delegation on it this afternoon, so I was wondering if we might be able to move number 15 up just in case we're running late.
Okay, I want to get staff's opinion. Mr. May?
So through you, Mr. Chair, yes, that was actually going to be my recommendation. Mr. Chapman's just left the room, but I believe we may also be able to begin special council immediately after if council wanted to take that item.
Okay, so why don't we move item number 15 up? I'll take a motion on that. All those in favor? Moved by Councillor Fernandez. Okay, or Councillor Galloway-Sealock. Okay, you have a question, Councillor Fernandez, on it?
Yep.
Go right ahead.
Yep. So, since Ms. McNeil is here, my question was, do you see this as a way of expediting some small noise exemption requests? So if somebody's having a backyard party or somebody's having an event, an anniversary or something like that, or a wedding, and the noise may go past our usual bylaw time, having delegated authority, will that expedite some of these requests?
Ms. McNeil?
Through the chair, yes, that's exactly what we're looking to have happen through delegating the authority for this. Is we often do get small scale events such as barbecues, gatherings, weddings, where we don't have time to go to council for these noise exemptions, so that would be very helpful for these individuals.
Yeah, good. And I was thinking it would probably also reduce frustration for people who realize that they may have come a little bit in the late hour and wanted to have this event, and all of a sudden they're waiting on the edge of their seat if they can go forward with it. Yeah, I'm totally in support of this. Thank you.
Councillor Marsh?
At the appropriate time, I want to move that we bring forward item 10 as well before we break.
Yeah, we can bring item 10 forward. I don't think that's an issue. Okay. We have no further questions for item number 15. Moved by Councillor Fernandez. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Item number 10. Moved by Councillor Marsh. Go ahead, Councillor Marsh.
We had a very productive conversation with residents a couple of weeks ago, and it was decided on site at that meeting by the staff that were facilitating the discussions that it would be best to prove to the residents that we can respond to some of the existing concerns they have before bringing forward the lighting decision. And so I'd just like to move that we delay this decision and bring it back at some point before August 31st.
Okay. Is there a specific date that you have in mind, or you just want to leave it up to staff?
I want to leave that up to the agenda setting process.
Mr. Reedman, did you click in, or Cynthia?
Through the chair, recognizing that we have a June opportunity or an August opportunity, there's a council break over the summer. We left some flexibility in terms of the timing. We would want to bring the issue back by August 31st because if we are to go ahead, lights need to be installed this fall.
Okay, with that. Okay. Councillor Fernandez.
I have a quick question. Cynthia, if for some reason you don't see that it's feasible, or there's a lot of pushback from the residents at Bright Up Park about the lighting there, What would happen to the funding for that component? Would that be held in abeyance for other parks? And you probably know where I'm going with this.
Through the chair, the money would remain in the existing account. One of the things we would have to look at is a strategy to accommodate Kitchener Minor baseball at other sites. So it may stay in that account for some time.
Okay, so it wouldn't be considered to be moved up for other diamonds, other locations like Upper Canada Park?
Through the chair, that would likely not be staff's recommendation because, as I just said, we need to accommodate, or it would be our recommendation to find a way to accommodate Kitchener Minor baseball program somewhere else.
So we would be considering lighting, possibly another park location where hardball would work better.
Through the chair, I think what you will see when we bring the report forward is we don't have many other options. So it would be a long-term strategy to try to accommodate Kitchener Minor baseball program.
Okay, thanks very much.
Okay, we have no further questions. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We will go into